Hey, econ students, Mr. P here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about our simulation, the Perry L Street Journal simulation. I know this week's been rough, hit and miss, taking all these tests, and sometimes I see you, sometimes I don't see you. And hopefully we can continue to press forward and learn more about the simulation. Over the last couple of days, if you've been absent, and I know like we held class just with first block, second block, juniors only in the afternoon of Wednesday. This is actually a little bit later on Wednesday right now that I'm taping this. And I didn't see all the juniors, and I know so some of you went home after the SAT. And I didn't see all the sophomores and seniors. I did see them on Monday and covered some of this material. But there are other people who are on quarantine, and I'm urging you to please check Google Classroom every day. If you're not in school, whether you're on quarantine or this funky schedule, please try to check Google Classroom, see if there's something that can help you, getting some bits of information that would be advantageous for you going into this simulation. As I reiterated today in class, and some of you were not there, and one of my concerns is I'll mention something in class that's very important, or I'll have it on the videotape, and some of you are not watching these videotapes, and some of you are not in class. And so some very important bits of information is getting by you. So if you've been gone and you're not prepared to start the simulation, don't be surprised that I catch you violating a rule, even though you innocently won't know you're violating that rule. You're going to find out because it was something that I maybe had mentioned in class, and you've been absent. And this is the advantage of being here every day. And I know some of you can't be here every day, but if you can't, then you have to watch these videos that I'm posting to get all this information. It's so important. So we're going to pick up with just a quick review of the investments. And so if you've been here the last couple of days, you know what these investments are. And so these investments are these things that make your stock go up, and you're paying me to do homework. There's a list in that packet, things like flyers and TV commercials and business cards, models, and so on and so forth. There's no limit, there is no minimum number that you have to do. You can do many or you can do none, but yeah, you can't do more than one per day. And the maximum is you can do one every day. Not everybody will do that. And what they do is they make your stock go up. And what will happen is if you look in the handout that I gave you, there's an investment price list. And it's how much you're going to have to pay me to do this investment. And once you pay that amount, the very next day you have to bring in your investment. And then I will evaluate your investment, and it will be put into one of four categories: poor, fair, good, or best. And that will make your stock go up based on that chart. Make sure you check that out. Now, also in class, I went over, okay, this is what the investment tickets are going to look like. You'll fill out these investment tickets. And if you do, for example, this person did a brochure, and it's $150. You'd have to turn in $150, and then the next day you bring in a brochure. And so I gave you, I'm going to go fast through this because you've all seen this if you were in school the last couple of days. There's an example of a model and a catalog and a poster, a cereal box. This kid did a skyscraper, kind of a foam skyscraper model of his headquarters. This gal did a pinata for her Mexican restaurant and poster. Uh, and I stopped on this slide for a little while to talk about what you do if you forget your investment. When you do an investment, you have to sign up and pay for it on one day, and then you have to bring it in the next day. If you don't bring it in, your stock will go down. All right, there's no extra days, there's no late investments. You're not allowed to forget. If you forget, you lose your opportunity and your stock goes down. So it's better to actually do a lame investment, a poor investment, than no investment at all. And this gal, Asia, she had a coffee shop and she had all these grand ideas about making these customized coffee cups and making fresh coffee for her classmates in school and so forth. And then she forgot to do all that. And then she had a friend go buy these four just regular black coffees from Forwards, the gas station in town. And so she got credit for doing it, albeit poor, but it was better than not doing it at all. This kid had a professional hot chocolate machine and catalog, and this gal did dance lessons. Here's a couple models, some food that you can see there. Another model of a construction company, flyer, a 3D flyer, bookmark. This kid was taking welding classes, and so he welded a sign. You can do songs and jingles, radio commercials, cookbooks. Here's another poster, uh, park benches, any way that businesses might advertise. And I'm going to show you some more examples of these in the coming days as we lead up to the period after IPO day, when it's then we go to basically everything's investment based. And you can do as many investments as you want or as few investments as you want. But a lot of them are related with food. And right now, under the COVID rules, there are some things we may not be able to do, and that's bring in food for your classmates. So if you have a food related business, we'll have to see if we can actually pull that off, especially given some of how bad COVID has gotten here in Michigan over the last couple of days. So we'll have to just kind of put a pause on the food investments as of right now. This kid did a paintball field for his paintball business. You can see that. Lots of different examples of models. Bee's Bakery, and you'll see the details that she put in this. These are the kinds of details that put you in the best category. This gal, Anna Marie, her parents actually had a t-shirt shop, and she made some sample t-shirts right in school. Just looking at a few other things. Another thing, with the COVID and bringing animals in from the outside, probably isn't going to be allowed as well. But a lot of these things you'll be able to do over video. Celebrity endorsement. There's Mr. Dalek from about 15 years ago. This gal did a party store. Got Keatley's Car Connection, a used car place, a horse ranch. This had one person do a horse ranch, ski hill. These are models. Here's some business cards, some sample business cards that you could make. Summer Brewer, she did Brewer's Burgers, and boy, she took care of the details. She made the bunch of burgers the night before, and then she put logos on her buns, and she put logos on her wax paper cheeseburger wraps. Here's another example of Cody, this kid Cody, who had he didn't make all this stuff, but it's going the extra details when you do things like food investments. Posters don't have to be rectangles. Think out of the box. Even if you have a business that can't do food, and if we don't do food, can you somehow tie it in with food? Flyers, uniforms. Here's another fancy fruit investment, cupcake investment. websites, social media, those are going to be interesting, but you got to make sure that you can that we can get access in the classroom so we can see what you're doing with a website or social media posts and so forth. So you'll have to prove that. This guy, Eric, he had a cell phone repair business. You fix, we buy, or you break, we fix, or something like that. Anyway, amazing details. He made cookies shaped like cell phones with all the individual apps on there. And some of you guys saw this the other day. So these are just a bunch of examples of different businesses. This kid, David, had a pet cemetery. So you got the pet cemetery thing going on there. Oh, and here's his dog casket. All right. Couple models. Food, it's about the presentation. You know, putting your company initials or company logos on the food. This one was done by Mrs. Murray's daughter, Gwyneth. She had a Caterpillar company. And this model's huge. It's actually, if you can see the floor here, and this takes hours upon hours upon hours. The more expensive an investment, the larger the impact it will have on your stock. Look at the detail that she had in this model. Flyers, announcements, demonstrations. Here's some examples of some stocks. Here's Bubby. Bubby's a good example of somebody, he had t-shirts made up and these tables, and he had his grandpa help him make like a snack shack, and just went all out. You know, these are the things that get you into that best ever category. Here's Ella's older brother, Clay, here. So investments are what you're going to do. Now I'm going to scroll back. The rest of today, we're going to talk about a few things that aren't related to investments. And they're going to have to do with record keeping. I'll get up here, and IPO day. And if you remember last week, we talked about Roscoe Bucks, and everybody's going to get 500 Roscoe Bucks. And you're also going to keep record of all your transactions. You're going to have to write all your transactions down so that it matches with your money. And then that second day after presentation day. So we have our presentation day. Everybody tells everybody about their business. Right now, that's still slated for Monday, but that could change. It's another reason why I want you to communicate with me. Check Google Classroom for announcements and so forth. But you must sell all your 25 single shares on this day. You have to. That's a rule. You have to get rid of half of your company. Not technically get rid of, but sell half of your stocks. Likewise, you have to keep 25. All right, remember there's 50 shares and one was a large 25 share. You have to keep that. You're not allowed to sell that. You always will own half of your company at all times. Now, you may buy back your shares only after your transaction record shows that you sold the first 25 shares. So once you've sold 25 shares, the single individual ones, if you really want to start accumulating more of your stock back, 26, 28, 30 shares of your own stock, 5 more on top of the 25 that you already own, then you can do it. But you know, you have to be careful because you might sell it to, you know, Joe or Mary for $50 a share. Then you want to buy it back from Joe or Mary, and they're going to charge you $100 a share. They're going to try and make some money off of you. So just be aware that sometimes it's hard to buy your own stock back because they know you want it, and they'll drive that price up. But you can have, once you've sold 25, you can have more than 25 after that if you start buying back some of your shares. So that's one of the big rules on IPO day. We're going to have a timer, all right, and it's going to be crazy. People are going to be running up to each other on their desks. And notice these pictures here. You've got transaction records and money and folders. One of the things I want everybody to do is to go out and find some sort of folder. It can be a folder, like this, or it can be one of those enclosed, closable sorts of folders. I don't recommend, like your binder, because things will fall out of that. But you're going to have, if you look at these photos, it's going to get crazy. All right, here's another IPO day back when I had Miss Petrosky's room. Kids are here negotiating with each other. You'll see a lot of them will have these envelopes, these sealable envelopes to keep their stocks and their money in. These two gals are negotiating with each other. You got people running around the room. You want to buy my stock? Can I buy some of your stock? It's going to be a crazy day. Here's a young man. He was an exchange student from Africa, Suleiman, and he's got his money in this folder and his transaction record, and he's basically saying, you want to buy some of my stock, and they're negotiating. This is actually my daughter, my 27-year-old daughter, who's a teacher now. She back in 2011, she had my class, and she's like, Dad, don't take any pictures of me, get away from me. But she was in the process of negotiating with this other student here on buying some stocks. Here's a couple gals. Now, I don't want to come across as belittling the females in class, but when you negotiate, I want you to be shrewd. Don't be too nice to each other. And what I tend to get with the females are, I'll buy some of yours if you buy some of mine. Okay, that sounds nice. How much? $30. That sounds great. We have a deal. And then they shake on it. Be a little, be a tougher negotiator. If they say, well, I'll buy some of yours for 30, say, well, how about 50? And then maybe you can come to an agreement at 40 or something like that. Be shrewd. Now, guys tend to have that more in their nature and will be more like that. And so I'm urging everybody, not just the females, to be a good negotiator. Don't just let your stock go for cheap amounts. And at the same time, don't always just pay whatever the owner is asking for those shares. Negotiate a little bit. And that's what these two gals here are doing. They're kind of going back and forth, negotiating a price on IPO day. And one of the things we're going to do either tomorrow, Friday, or if things get put off a day on Monday, is I'm going to go over how to fill out these transaction records. It's quite easy, but everybody will have to keep a transaction record. So I do urge you to get, one of these closable envelopes, large yellow folders here, because it makes things very, very easy. So here are some kids negotiating purchase of some stock. There's a couple stocks here and got their money. Got to be careful. One of the common mistakes on IPO day is some of this money sometimes sticks together. And you may have tried to pay somebody $40, but you had 220 sticking together and you ended up giving them $60. Now that hurts both of you, the recipient and the giver, because now both of your transaction records are going to show a $60 discrepancy, minus 60 on your part, or excuse me, a minus $20 discrepancy, because it was, you gave a 20x, you gave 20 too much. And so the other person's going to have too much money, and they're going to try and figure out, where did my mistake, where'd this mistake come from? See here, a couple guys at the end of IPO day. Sometimes you can have a lot of cash left over. Here's another negotiation going on. This young man here he's got this like airline. His stocks are shaped like planes. And this is the gal, Katrina, who's got the photography stocks. And they're just discussing back and forth, how much are we going to buy for? Now, I've got a process. And again, I'll go over this at the beginning of IPO day, but you guys will negotiate. Once you agree on a price, what I want you to do is, first thing I want you to do is, once you agree on a price, you have to handshake, okay? And I know with COVID, we probably should eliminate that rule, but at some point we've got to seal the deal. So maybe if we don't do handshake, maybe we'll just say, okay, do we have a deal? And once the person confirms that you have a deal, then you can't go back on that. All right. So for example, if these two are negotiating and she agrees to buy some of his stock for $40, and then somebody comes up from behind and says, I'll give you $50. All right. Once they've said deal or had their handshake, then he still has to sell to her for $40. And the process is once you've agreed on a price and how many shares, you're then going to transfer the money in the stocks, and then you're going to write it down. All right. Too often we get people deviating from the process, and they'll either forget to actually transfer the stock or the money, or they'll forget to write it down. That's very, very important. You have to do both. We will find mistakes on after IPO day that you won't even believe. People will make deals and forget to pay people, and then people will forget to take payment, and or they'll sell 2 shares of stock, and then the people will leave those 2 shares on the table and walk away from it, and they're going to wonder, where did my 2 shares of this stock go? And so you got to be very, very careful and keep good records while we're doing this. Here's a class. Whoop. Here's a class, and toward the end of IPO day, Suleiman here, who was our African exchange student, had just swung some deals with these gals here. So the transaction record. So all monetary transactions, whenever money enters your hands or leaves your hands, we have to keep a record of those trades. Now, don't get confused, because in stock market terminology, we call buying and selling trading in the stock market. Now, it's not trading in the traditional sense of, two people trading their Pokemon cards, or I'm trading my pair of basketball shoes for your Nike Jordans. All right. Yes, that's trading. And it is within the rules to trade stocks, but you have to put a monetary value on them. So if Joe goes up to Mary and says, I'll trade you one of my shares for one of your shares, you can't do that. You have to put a dollar amount on that transaction. So you'd have to write down some random number. I'm buying, one of your shares for $50, and you're buying one of my shares for $50. So you're going to exchange shares, and then I'm going to give you $50, and you're going to give me that $50 right back. So money doesn't necessarily need to transact. Money doesn't actually have to change hands if you're going to do a so-called trade, but you have to write it down in your transaction as if money did trade hands, as money did transact. So on the transaction record, which I'm not going to pull up just this moment, it's going to be part of tomorrow, Friday's lesson, is you're going to either buy, or you're going to sell, or you're going to pay for an investment, or you're going to receive a dividend. And then there are special notations. Special notations are when you receive money or pay money, and it's not one of these top 4. The most popular type of transactions are going to be buys and sells of stocks. Those are going to take up most of your transaction record. But every now and then you might do an investment, and every now and then you might receive a dividend. And so you know that those are going to be the top 4. Every now and then you might have a situation that doesn't fall under one of those 4 categories. So let's say you don't want to do your presentation, and you're going to pay Avery to do your presentation for you, and you agree on the price of 50 Roscoe bucks. All right. You can agree on anything. You could buy that person McDonald's for all I care. It doesn't matter. But let's say you agree to exchange 50 Roscoe bucks, the currency in our simulation. And you say, well, Mr. P, that's not a buy or a sell of stocks. That's not an investment. It's not a dividend. What do I write it down as? Well, you're going to write it down as a special. And you're just going to put it in as a special, and it's going to go toward, let's say, Joe or Avery. All right. And Avery is going to, you're going to put did my presentation down and minus $50. And then Avery is going to have a notation, a special notation. Did so-and-so's presentation, special notation, $50 plus $50. I received $50. Now this says transaction record available on the H drive. Way back in the day, our school network drive, like our Google drives, were called the H drive. And but if you want a electronic version of the transaction record by request, I'll send you one. If you have like really sloppy handwriting and you want to type up your transactions, you can do that. So this is the single biggest variable in your grade for the simulation. 25% is neatness and 25% is accuracy. So 25% is how well you do in the game, all right? And then the last 25% is simply just called class participation. And so all of these things are going to make up 100% of your grade, 25, 25, 25, 25. But neatness and accuracy together, that's 25 and 20, that's 50%, that's half of your grade, is how neat and accurate you are in your transaction record. So it's a very important part of what you're going to be doing. One of the things that I've said a few times over, I got to pause this, I've got a phone call coming in here. So let me just pause my. All right, I'm back. And as I was about to say, absences and running companies. Now, in a non-COVID year, I'm pretty strict about this. You always have to have somebody running, quote unquote, running your company every day. When I do attendance at the beginning of each Perry Ellis Street Journal simulation class period, if somebody's absent for whatever reason, could be a good reason, could be a bad reason, for whatever reason, the very next question I'm going to ask is who's running that person's company. If nobody's running your company, guaranteed your stock's going to go down the following day. All right. And you'll miss out on money-making opportunities. And it's just not a good thing to not have somebody running your company. If they're running your company on your behalf, then they can collect dividends you may have earned. They can fill out any paperwork that needs to be filled out at the last minute. There's lots of different things that running somebody's company will help them from getting penalized. And so, as I had mentioned in class today, if you really, let's say you own your own ice cream shop, all right? And you have a legitimate reason to be gone. Let's say you have a funeral to go to and a death in the family. Well, you got to, as a business owner, you got a couple different choices. You can just leave and close down your business for a couple days and lose out on money-making opportunities, or you get somebody to run your business for you in your absence so you don't lose out on that money. And so we're going to treat it the same way. The guy who runs his ice cream shop, but he's got a funeral to go to, he can choose to just close his business. And if he's making $1,000 a day in his business, he's just not going to make $1,000, $2,000 for 2 days or whatever. If he gets somebody to run his business for them, he may have to pay them. And you may have to pay your classmates. Maybe you ask somebody, hey, will you run my business? I'm going to be gone tomorrow. And they say, yeah, I'll run your business for 50 Roscoe bucks or whatever. Maybe they'll just do it as a favor, which is great. Maybe you'll have you scratch my back situation. I'll scratch your back if you're ever absent sort of situation. Now, I may have mentioned the Matt Morley rule. Coach Morley, the wrestling coach from last year, he was a former student of mine, and he was running somebody's company. And what he did was he basically ripped that person off. And because when you're running your company, you have control of their company. And then he basically sold all that person's stock to himself for dirt cheap. And yeah, that's not cool. So we had to make a rule for that. And so if you're running somebody's company, You can buy and sell stock on their behalf, but you can't buy and sell stock with yourself on their behalf. So if the person says, yeah, go ahead and buy and sell some stocks for me, they can buy and sell stocks for you if they're running your company, but they can't buy and sell stocks that are related to your two companies. All right. Yeah, that you're not allowed to do a transaction with one another if you're running somebody's company for them. So that's our update up to this point. We've covered a lot of different things. The biggest thing is those investments and IPO day. The next thing on the agenda is basically a lot of the record keeping. So we're going to spend at least Friday, depending on how far we get, maybe into Monday or Tuesday. We may have to put off presentations and IPO for a couple of days, but keep checking Google Classroom every day. All right, I've got helpful hints and videos and stuff like that. If you're watching these videos and going on to Google Classroom, you'll get the most information, and you don't want to not know the different things that you can do and things that you cannot do within and outside of those rules. So I bid you adieu. We'll hopefully see you guys tomorrow on Friday. We have a full class schedule on Friday.